All right, welcome everyone. Today is Wednesday, the 29th of January, 2025, and this is the Cluster API office hours meetings. Cluster API is a sub-project of SIG Cluster Lifecycle, and as such, we follow their meeting guidelines, which basically can be boiled down to please treat each other as you would expect to be treated, or explicitly so. Please be kind to each other. And if you'd like to ask a question, please raise your hand and I'll call on you. So at the beginning of our meetings, we like to make an opportunity for people who are new to the community or new to the meeting to introduce themselves. So I will be quiet for a few minutes, and if that sounds like you, then please either raise your hand or just unmute and say hi to everybody. All right. I am not seeing any hands going up or people unmuting. So we will move on from the new attendee welcome in 3, 2, 1. Okay. All righty, so let's go to our open proposals. And we have two currently, the in-place updates proposal and the CAP-D dev proposal. I don't see Guillermo, so I don't know if we have someone, would someone like to talk about in-place updates, or do we have someone who would want to talk about it? I'm not seeing any hands going up. And then the CAP-D proposal, this is a new one, I think, but I think Fabrizio, you were going to talk about that during the general topics. So, yeah,
Yeah, that's
Fabrizio,
correct.
please.
I just want to brought up that there was a meeting yesterday about the in place proposal. I think that Guillermo and Daniel and Alex, sorry, are going to update the proposal soon with the outcomes. Basically, we discussed about how to simplify a little bit what is there in order to start as soon as possible.
Awesome, cool. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that update. Okay, so we'll move along to the regular discussion topics then. I've got the first one, which makes this very convenient for me. So one of our users, I believe, and forgive me if I mispronounce this, Tsubasa Watanabe, has proposed that when scaling from zero, the cluster autoscaler with cluster API is not able to know about dynamic resource allocation like GPU nodes. And so what he has recommended here is an issue that we should create these annotations that supplement our current annotations for capacity overrides. And this is so that you put these annotations on a machine set or on a machine deployment so that the autoscaler knows when that replica set is at zero, it knows that there will be some sort of DRA driver there, and it will also indicate what pool it's part of. So Subasa could not make this meeting due to time zone differences, but I offered to bring the topic up here. And I wanted to see, I think this makes sense to me, but I wanted to see if anyone else had thoughts or if maybe there's other implementations we should be looking at. And I just saw a comment in the chat here. So yeah, I don't know. Does anyone have thoughts about this? And I guess if nobody has any oh, Fabrizio, please.
Let me say hot take. It seems in line with what we have. Maybe it will be, since we are getting ready to start thinking at V1 Beta 2, maybe it is also the opportunity to think about moving those annotation into a proper API type. I don't know if you want to discuss this with Joel, maybe first, and
Yeah, we
then
actually some of the stuff already. I don't know what DRA looks like from the node. Like, I don't know what a node with DRA looks like. I need to look into that a little more. But we actually already have some of this in the original opt in the scale from zero opt-in enhancement. The the API contract that we agreed on back then was that we would have a status available in the infrastructure machine template that could advertise what the capacity of the node will be. And assuming that DRA follows the same pattern, and I don't know if it does, I need to look into that a little more. I'm just not familiar with some of the details. But if that follows the same pattern, then yeah, absolutely. I think it's already included in the API changes we've made, which just due to the complexity around adding these changes to the providers, I don't think any, I think only a couple providers, like the VMware provider, and I think one other have added the capacity blocks to the infrastructure machine. I think IBM and VMware have done it. So I think it would follow in the same thing if DRA works the same way. But if not, I totally agree with you, Fabrizio. We should return to that scale from zero enhancement and maybe add something about DRA. Okay, I'm just going to make a note here.
Just a question. Let's make sure that this capacity thing is documented in the contract. Top of mind, and don't remember, but I'm checking.
Oh yeah, it might only be in the enhancement. It might not have made it into the docs. I mean, it's an opt-in field on the status, so it's optional for providers to implement it.
Mm, yeah, probably should be documented because I tried to document everything I was aware on the contract new contract page and pasting the link in Zoom, but probably I missed this one. Uh,
Yeah, I think it was not in the old contract doc, so we also didn't move it in the new contract doc.
exactly. So
I also don't see it.
yeah,
Just looking
yeah,
at it.
we should document what we have. Let me say, what I'm bringing up is a little bit tangential about on the proposal, but we should make sure that everything that is in the contract should be documented in the page. If we are going to expand, if we don't have already API types defined in the contract, maybe it is a good time to define them. That's it. But as you see, I'm probably lagging behind here.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like I'll try to take some time and go back and look at that because like when we originally wrote the enhancement, we wrote it as an optional API contract that could be followed by providers, right? So every provider, and that was why we added the annotation so that users could exercise scale from zero, even if their provider had not yet implemented the infrastructure machine template status blocks. And I would imagine, but yes, like we should go back and document that. So that's a good point. Thank you very much. Pavel, I see you got your hand up.
Yeah, I'm also lagging behind this, although I have one question, because there is the annotation that mentions device plugin or sorry, the array driver, which could be a device plugin, right? I mean, is this something that be used there? I mean, there is specifically this device NVIDIA plugin for Kubernetes, right?
Yeah, like my understanding of this is what we need to do, and this just to let, bring everybody up to speed here. So this is how, like, we have two ways to support scale from zero in the cluster autoscaler. One of them was defined in this enhancement that we added a while ago. And the way to add it as part of the API is to add this to your machine templates, right? So this is just for background, this is the way it would work. And then as a way to augment that, in case your provider didn't supply those, then you could add these as well. Now, to your question, Pavel, yeah, I think the details here, like the idea is that you're going to specify whatever driver it is you're using, and then you would give it the pool name here so that the autoscaler knows when it creates a template to run through the scheduler, it knows that those nodes will eventually have this type of DRA driver on them. Now, I will admit
Okay.
I'm a little bit weak on the specifics on this. I need to go do some more reading. But yeah, I think what Stefan is saying here about the device plugins and the DRA drivers, yeah, I think it is like the same mechanisms. Stefan.
So, I also think so, but yeah, so sorry, I forgot.
Yeah, no worries. It's good. Stefan, please.
I just wonder if it's already implemented in other parts of the autoscaler, because I remember that when I did the work for DRA in core Kubernetes, I mean, they're still doing it, right? There was a big focus on basically, on one side, of course, the scheduler has to include DRA in those decisions, but then there was also a large focus on basically the cluster autoscaler can do the same thing on its side, so that essentially the cluster autoscaler can work like as it usually has to work, like aligned to the scheduler. So maybe this is only a thing about like that the cluster API provider within the autoscaler doesn't have it yet. And maybe there is something like just, oh yeah, the other providers, you just have to look how they did it and basically match this to how cluster API works.
Well, right. Yeah. I mean, you're right. Like, so as I understand it, Tsubasa has been looking through the code, and Cluster API is one of the implementations that needs work for scale from 0, right? Now, yes, we're talking about vanilla cluster autoscaler. Now, the work that needs to be done is like there's a function inside of our implementation of the provider code that creates, and you can see Tsubasa has called it out here, this template node info function. The core autoscaler calls that function when it wants to find out what the nodes will look like, right? And we need to update that to make the node look like what it would look like if the driver was there, right? So that it knows there'll be a driver there. But I can follow up with Tsubasa and see what the next steps are. If everyone's okay with these for now and following up on the API stuff, that seems like some good follow-up actions for now. And thank you, Fabrizio, for taking the notes there. Did you raise your hand again, Stefan? Or?
Yeah, just one quick short additional note. If I saw it correctly, DRA is now beta in 132, but not enabled per default. But just what I'm thinking about is when you look up all of the stuff, we probably should also check like how stable those things are that we're basically like importing from the DRA side. And if they still have potential to change, that we are also able to change it on our side accordingly. I don't know if that means that maybe you have to start with an experimental annotation and later. I don't really know what it means for the autoscaler. Just saying, probably like API stability and the state of their feature on their side could have some impact on how we would want to surface it on our side.
Right. No, yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point. And yeah, we have to check that stuff. And I think part of the good thing about this is Tsubasa is looking forward and trying to give us a heads up on what's coming and everything. So yeah, these are great points. All right, we spent a good amount of time talking about that. Does anybody else have comments or questions, or are people okay to move on to the next one? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands going up. So Fabrizio, I appreciate you taking notes, but we're gonna move on to your first topic here about deferring the V1 beta 2. So please.
Okay, and apologize in advance if I have a long list of topics into the agenda. So the first one is about V1 beta 2 work. Little bit context. We spent some time at beginning of the cycle trying to get the PR backlog down to normal, and we think we are there. We still are following up a couple of PR that are nearing completion, but this is becoming business as usual. So we are starting focusing on, okay, what's next? So according to the proposal that we agreed upon last August on improving conditions, we are expecting to bump V1 beta 2 in the current release, so in 1.10. But after discussing this a little bit with Stefan, Christian, Vince, we feel like that this will be not easy and also a little bit rushed. And so the idea is to postpone V1 beta 2 to 1.11. And also do the following changes. So get an early code freeze in 1.10, so we can open up which is basically going back from April 8 to March 18, which are 3 weeks, but one of those 3 weeks is the KubeCon one. So we basically made the code freeze 2 working weeks before than usual. This will allow us basically to open the main branch for 1.11 work earlier than usual, earlier than expected. We can start the work on V1 Beta 2. And so even if, let me say, the rest of the 1.10 release goes on as expected, and so we can cut the first alpha for 1.11, ideally end of May. This will give, instead of when we usually cut the beta 1, this will give providers and everyone 6 additional weeks for the bump to V1 beta 2. And I think this is really important. More room for testing, more room for feedback. And just to make this a little bit visual, if you scroll down a little bit in the page, there is basically this 2 schema about current planning, so where we are, which is the first table down below, and where we, and the change that I'm proposing. Yep. I stop for comment or questions.
All right. Any comments or questions about kind of the update in the release schedule here? I think it makes sense to me. Please, Matt.
Yeah, you messaged me and I kind of knew this was coming, so we kicked it around at the release team meeting earlier. No one has any objections, it seems. It seems like what we need to happen anyway, so all it means to us is compressing the schedule a little bit. So I'll go and update that task document to move things back 2 or 3 weeks. I don't think that'll rock the world too much.
Thank you very much.
Cool. Thank you, Matt. Any other questions or comments about this topic? Okay, I'm not seeing any more hands going up, so I think Fabrizio, we're good to talk about the cap dev proposal.
Yep. Just to close the topic above, I'm going to open a PR updating the proposal with the new dates. And so, yeah, in case someone has something to add, there will be still time. Okay, next one, hopefully a quick one. So part of the effort to keep our maintainer healthy and happy, and so we discussed this. I discussed this with you, Mike, back last year in August. Then, due to reason, I never got there. But basically, what we have today? Today we have 3 full-fledged provider for test. One is CupD, the other is Custom API memory, and then we have also KubeMark provider, which is out of 3. Okay. Today, for maintain all these provider, there is a lot of toil, especially KubeMark, which is out of 3, and a lot of duplication code. If we look at the in-memory provider, we have all the files to generate a Docker image, to generate the manifest, etc., and the main, while we only need a new CRD type, etc. So the idea is evolve CupD in CupDev, where a dev cluster can have multiple backends. So basically, we merge all together all those providers with this idea of backend, and we drop all the scaffolding, which is almost duplicated or just toil to maintain. please take a look at the proposal. It will help us maintainer to free up some cycle along the way. Mike?
Yeah, like unsurprisingly, I'm a big +1 for this since you started talking about it last year, or I think since you started rumoring it at a KubeCon or something. Yeah, like this would obviously make the KubeMark maintenance much easier because right now I'm kind of struggling just to keep up with the cluster API and the Kubernetes updates on that provider. So yeah, I'm a big +1 for this. I looked at the document. I guess maybe I'm just not super opinionated, but it looked really good to me. So yeah, I would love to see this go forward, and I'd be happy to help migrate the KubeMark stuff in there. Once we get, I figure once we get cap Docker and cap in memory in place, there'll be a good pattern, and I could just follow right behind you and move the KubeMark stuff over. Like I would love to do that. So thank you again for Brazil.
Okay. I don't want to push too much, but since this is, let me say, the things that I don't think that is user facing, and the proposal basically keep the current Docker type around for a long time. I would like to propose a lazy consensus of this, a quite short lazy consensus of this proposal. It already has two or three LGTM, so I think that discussion is going well. If that's okay, we put a lazy consensus at the end of next week. I send a message maybe to the mailing list, and so we get this moving as soon as possible, out of the way as soon as possible.
Yeah, I guess if nobody objects, like yeah, we'll just drop a comment on the PR and maybe put a 7 February. Okay, Stefan. All right, Stefan had his hand up, then he dropped it. Did you have a thought about that? Christian looks like he's thumbs up.
No, I was just about to say maybe let's add a link to the proposal, but then I remember that we have a link at the top of the document. So
yeah. Oh, that's a
fine.
good call. Yeah. Why don't we just do that as long as we're here? Okay. All right. So does anyone else have questions or comments about that before we move on to the next topic? Okay, not seeing any hands going up. So Fabrizio, I'll pass the mic back to you.
Thank you. Last one, hopefully a quick one. So again, something to try to drop some toil. We have this test about one-to-one to current release. Copy 1.0, sorry, to current release. 1.0 is more than 3 years old now. And so the test make not a lot of test of sense. And I think it is better that we drop it. So let's rumor on flakes, stuff like that, and maintainers and also release team can focus on supporting N-2 and -1 upgrade. So the release that we are actively supporting, and yeah, we free up time for working on new stuff.
Yeah, and it seems like it's already been merged. So
This is just an FYI.
Right, totally. And I can't believe Cappy 1.0 3 years ago. Wow, where did the time go, right?
Yes.
All right, cool. Any questions about that from the audience here? Okay, not seeing any hands going up, so we'll move on to the next topic. Tilo, you've got something about flat car at FOSDEM.
Yeah, it's a really quick one. I thought since FOSDEM is about to happen next weekend, this weekend, the coming weekend in a few days, I just want to ask if anyone's around. We have a booth there. We share a booth with the Gen2 project. we'll have some neat stuff there, like an Amiga 1200 running Gentoo at the booth. And if you folks want to drop by for a chat, that would be super nice. And also, there's at least one talk that will touch cluster API a little bit. So I have this Kubernetes from the trenches with SIG and whatnot. That will use cluster API in the second half for demo purposes. That's the talk that didn't make it to KubeCon, so I just used it at FOSDEM. All right. Yeah, I don't know if anyone wants to join in and say, yeah, I'm there, then drop by the booth.
Cool. Pablo, you've got your hand up.
So this is KubeCon when? This one? I mean, everything.
FOSDEM, not
yeah.
KubeCon. So that was supposed to be
Okay.
my KubeCon talk, but it was rejected. So
Uh-huh.
I just reused it for FOSDEM, which is, yeah, nice, I think. And FOSDEM is in the coming weekend, like the 1st and 2nd of February in Brussels.
Oh, I see. Okay. Maybe I'll be there then. I'm
Awesome.
not sure. But if I'm there, then I will join the conversation. It's interesting.
FOSDEM is one of the few conferences I have not been to yet, and it's on my bucket list. I will not be there this weekend, Thilo, but I hope you have fun, and it looks like it's going to be a great time. So thank you for representing that. Okay. Any other questions about FOSDEM or flat card FOSDEM? Okay, Pavel, did you have your hand up again, or was that from before? Okay, no worries.
Sorry.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. Okay, so we'll move on to the provider updates. It looks like we just have one today from CapZ. So please, Matt.
Yeah, I typed most of it out there, but we were kind of stuck on several fronts, and so this release is a couple months late, which was sort of painful, but the good news is we're unblocked everywhere we were blocked, and there's some nice stuff in there. And Flatcar SysX template, for example, call back to what Thilo was talking about. So yeah, back to our regular release schedule, which is probably a lot more frequent than it's been the last couple of months.
Nice. Awesome to see the update, and thanks for taking the time to type it all out. Okay. All righty. So that brings us to the end of our regular agenda. Does anyone have any ad hoc or last minute topics they would like to bring up for the group? Going once? Going twice? Okay. Going 3 times. Like, we'll take 30 minutes of our day back. Thanks everyone for coming out, and we'll see you next week, if not sooner, online.